Hello, my name is Cage Brinkman. For our project, we chose to observe cans and detect defects in the cans. A brief background will help establish the need and help you understand why we need to improve in the manufacturing of metal cans. CMI is known as the National Trade Association that manufactures and delivers metal cans. And since about 98% of Americans have canned foods in their pantries, some up to 24 cans on average, the company that has to manufacture about 124 billion cans every year, which generates somewhere around $17.8 billion. Of the 124 so billion cans produced, it said that as much of 11% of these loads, averaging around 2%, have some sort of damage that results from the manufacturing or delivering of the cans. The downside of this is that retailers tend to show that they don't accept to pay for the order if just one can is damaged. Not to mention that damaged cans can lead to holes in the cans that can later cause the spoiling to occur faster. A solution we proposed is using a CMOS vision sensor that could analyze the cans that would let us know if there is a defect. Through using a huge transform in MATLAB, we could apply this to an image to determine the circumference of the can, and it would tell us if it was intact, letting by basically scanning if it was a circle. A quick run through of how we did our project. We first started by putting cans that were damaged and cans that were not damaged next to each other and taking photos with our vision sensor, which came from a phone on a camera. We then converted that to a binary image, which we did on MATLAB. From there, we were able to use coding to detect if one, there was a can, and two, if the can was defective. Not only were we able to detect that, but we were able to use a counter to count up the number of cans and also count up the number of cans that were defected.
Hello, I am Christian Gelardo. I will be talking about our attempts for the cans and any errors we had, along with any breakthroughs we had in the code. So on our first attempt, we tried putting the cans on a white background. However, when I converted the cans to the image of the cans to a binary image, so a black and white image, I noticed that the cans and the background blended together very well, so it would be hard to form a distinct contrast between the cans and the background. So if I tried to develop a threshold, it could just convert the entire image to white, and I wouldn't be able to single out the cans from the background. So on my first attempt, I concluded that this trial was a loss, just because I didn't think I could work with it. So from the first attempt, I was able to decide that a white background wasn't going to work for this. So for our second attempt, I tried the same code but on a white background. So as you can see in the image, we put it on a glossy surface. However, the cans on a glossy surface reflected the light back at the sensor. So the glossy surface did not absorb the light but reflected it back at the sensor, which again had a similar issue. A possible solution to this would be to crop some of the glossy image out. So the cans are still on the black background, and as you can see from the binarized image, that the cans are surrounded by a completely black square. But it would require more pre-processing and more code to get this to work, and I wanted to try and keep it as simple as possible. So I decided that the glossy background would not work for this. So our group had another idea when working with the images, it would be easier, instead of trying to analyze all the cans at once, to analyze one each can individually. So that way, if we were having an error with one of the cans, we could determine what the error was, and we could simplify the experiment by analyzing just one variable at a time. So we switched to only analyzing one can at a time, and then we also had a matte black background, so that way the background could not reflect light back at the sensor. So our original idea was to analyze the edges of the can, so the circumference, and if using a hue transform we could draw a circle from the edge, then it would be considered a circle and a full and an undamaged can. However, the cans have a lot of defects in them as it is, small defects that are almost impossible to tell to the human eye, but the computer can pick it up and the sensors can as well. So I tried performing an opening. I'm sorry, I tried performing a closing to try and correct the small defects in the outside of the can. However, as after the closing was performed, I performed it again to try and fix it, and it still was picking up the small deformities in the edges. So we determined that that performing a closing and trying to detect the outside circumference of the can just wasn't going to work. As you can see in this attempt, the code was set to try and determine the outside circumference, so to draw a circle around the edges of the can. Even with a modified sensitivity, the hue transform could not detect a circle on the outside. So you can see some small defects in the outside of the can. This would qualify as a good can, one that a consumer could purchase and effectively use, but the computer would pick it up as a defective can. So we determined that this would not work, even with performing several closings. And I had even tried an opening in a previous run just to see if it would work, and it just wouldn't. However, for our final attempt, we tried something a little different. On the inside of the cans, there was a ring that was almost always intact. So as you can see in the image, the ring is always picked up by the hue transform, and it was always the same size, because even if the can was slightly damaged, the ring would not be damaged. So this ring was what we were using, and if the can was badly damaged, the hue transform would not detect it as a circle, and it could be determined that that can was in fact defective. So as you can see from the column of images on the left, for the left-hand image, that sensitivity was set to detect if there was a can visible. So that way, if the can was put in front of the sensor could determine that there was a can in front of it. And then the right-hand column of images was the same code run again, but with a different sensitivity to determine if the can was damaged or not. So the first image was determined not damaged. The second image, since there's no circle drawn, the hue transform did not pick up a circle. Therefore, it can be concluded that the can is damaged. And then on the last image, it picked up the circle again, so that can is good.
Hi, I'm Jonathan Christie, and I'm going to talk about the global and social implications of detecting a defective can. A large portion of the cost of software development consists of error removal and reworking on projects. Defective products cost manufacturers, as the reworking process costs more than the initial process. So that is why having a high level of defect detection costs a lot more than a moderate level. Hi, I'm Jonathan Christie. The early detection of faults or defects and the removal of said defects is essential to improving product quality and reducing the economic impact caused by discarding defective products. On the basis of social implications, customers have a better quality product. As it relates to canned foods, finding defects can reduce any Based on the results and analysis of the system, the conclusion can be made that the system was successful in being able to detect the defectiveness of cans. But as of now, the system is only able to detect defects on one side. One possible improvement to the system would be to expand the detection area to allow both sides to be detected for defects. Another improvement that could be made is for the system to not only count the defective cans, but to remove them as well. But all in all, the goal of being able to detect defects in a sample of cans was accomplished.